There are many types of violence. Specifically, there are many types of violence against women. Verbal harassment, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and femicide are just a few examples. For this presentation, we will focus on the far end of the spectrum, femicide, or the murder of a woman. We will explore different manifestations of it around the world, as well as intersectionality and how gender influences women's experience with femicide. Let's begin by stating, what is femicide? According to the World Health Organization, it is the intentional murder of women simply because of the fact that they are women. Definitions include killings of both women and girls. It is at the far end of the spectrum of violence against women, as it usually ends in death. So who is affected by femicide? As previously stated, women and girls are both affected by femicide. According to the World Health Organization, pregnant women are at an even higher risk. In Latin America, femicide occurs at random. Historical murders of women without a cause other than their sex has marked places like Juarez, Mexico, and Central America. These acts are committed simply because the victim is a woman. In the Middle East and South Asia, women experience femicide due to honor killings. Honor killings are the murder for an assumed or an actual sexual or behavioral transgression. In India, femicide manifests itself as dowry-related. This is when conflicts related to dowry lead to a woman's death. It is also known as dowry killings. Intersectionality is defined as the way that different forms of discrimination overlap. So how does intersectionality apply to femicide? It applies because it affects women simply because they are women, aka their gender, but also it is ethnic or racially driven, as women in underdeveloped countries are disproportionately affected. Let's go over types of femicide. The first type is intimate femicide or intimate partner femicide. This is a type of femicide that is committed by a former partner, usually a boyfriend or a spouse. There is a gender disparity because more than 35% of all murders of women globally are committed by a former partner versus about 5% of all men's murders committed by women. The World Health Organization and London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine conducted a study that showed these numbers, and therefore showed a gender disparity within intimate partner murders. Among that 5%, most of the killings were done in self-defense. Honor killings are the punishment from a male to a female for behavioral or sexual transgression. They are often done to protect the family reputation and adhere to wrongly interpreted religious demands. There are an estimated 5,000 female murders per year due to honor killings. Dowry-related femicide usually occurs in India. It is when women are killed by their in-laws due to dowry insufficiency or a disagreement about the dowry. It is often done by burning and can be very violent. When thinking about an intervention, we must think about the effect of gender roles in femicide. The reason for this is because femicide is usually perpetrated by men. Men are seen as more powerful in countries like India, Asia, and Latin America. These gender roles make women submissive and therefore more vulnerable to being victims of femicide. It can be difficult to find a solution to femicide due to the cultural implications that are ingrained within a community. Certain studies have shown that gender inequality in terms of education, economic level, and employment increases the risk of women being subject to violent acts, sexual violence, and femicide. However, there is also evidence that concerns the relationship between women's higher socioeconomic status, especially in terms of income and employment, that can also increase the risk of intimate partner violence and femicide. This relationship contradicts itself and is born out of the patriarchal backlash against women's progress. It proves that there really is no clear concrete solution on how to prevent femicide. Regardless, any solution must be multifaceted in order to face intersectionality and to properly address the problem of femicide. One way to end femicide is at policy level, that is, to create policies that protect women before they become a victim of femicide. After all, femicide begins with violence. Another way would be to provide safety for women at risk, whether through shelters or through protection through safety programs like the police department or the Department of Health and Human Services. Another way is to enforce strict punishment for the perpetrator. That means longer jail sentences and the inability to return to the family and pose a threat to whoever they were attacking. Another very important factor would be to educate younger generations. This means to teach young boys and young girls that it is not okay to hurt or murder a woman. We need to find interventions that are adequate for different cultures, as we saw that the problem of femicide expands to different parts of the world. The intervention must target the population of both men and women. Gender is represented within the intervention because it educates men and provides resource for women. It also addresses both genders by starting the education at a young age. Intervention addresses intersectionality by seeking ways to adhere to specific cultures as well. In conclusion, femicide is a health issue that occurs due to being female, because the social constructs attached to gender contribute to the power struggle between men and women. Therefore, the intervention must address gender. Gender influences how the issue is to be addressed, and the intervention I suggested gives both men and women strategies that aim to reduce the incidence.